Russia has just made a surprising discovery that has caught everyone off guard. They found a massive amount of oil, about 50 billion barrels, hidden in an African country that many people didn't even think about when it came to oil exploration. So where exactly did this happen? It took place in Burkina Faso, a landlocked nation in the Sahel region, typically known more for its cotton than for oil. Nobody expected to find oil here. It's a place that major oil companies have ignored for years. While countries like Nigeria and Angola have been the focus for global oil giants like Shell and Exxon, Burkina Faso was deemed too risky and too far from the ocean to transport oil effectively. However, Russia saw an opportunity. Facing tough international sanctions back home, the Kremlin needed a new approach. Instead of sending in military forces, they sent teams of engineers, scientists, and drillers to explore potential options in Africa, specifically in countries that had been neglected by the West and were in search of new partners. By 2023, Russia's energy company Gazprom had started its operations in Burkina Faso. They used advanced technology, including satellites and underground sensors, to search for oil. What they discovered could change the dynamics of energy resources in the region and beyond. What they discovered was astonishing, even to them. While others dismissed the area as just ordinary rock, Russian geologists noticed something intriguing. They picked up on small signs in the landscape that hinted at something valuable hidden beneath the surface. So quietly and without fanfare, they began to drill. There were no flashy news stories or grand announcements, just a discreet operation taking place in the dusty, hot northern region. Then came the big surprise. They struck oil, 50 billion barrels of it. This wasn't just any oil. It was high quality, light, and sweet crude that is easy to refine and in high demand around the world. This discovery wasn't just a matter of luck. Experts believe that the area may have once been part of a vast inland sea filled with plant and marine life. Over millions of years, those ancient remains turned into oil, and because the land here remains stable, the oil deposits were well preserved. So how did no one notice this before? If you're enjoying this video, consider giving it a like. Done? Great, let's continue. Burkina Faso has often been overlooked. The few companies that explored it used outdated maps and basic technology, which limited their discoveries. Meanwhile, Russia stepped in with advanced seismic scanners and AI technology that could interpret the land more clearly. While Western oil companies saw Burkina Faso as a complicated challenge, with no coastline, no refineries, and difficult transport routes, Russia viewed it as a long-term investment. For Gazprom, this was more than just business. It was part of a strategic vision for the future. It was a pivotal moment in the reconfiguration of the global chessboard. With the confirmation of a monumental oil discovery and preparations for drilling now in full swing, the figures emerging from this revelation are astounding. This single oil field, if properly harnessed, has the potential to generate over $3 trillion in revenue over the years, even when accounting for costs related to infrastructure development, such as constructing roads and pipelines, and ensuring site security. Significantly, it stands as one of the most consequential oil discoveries of this century. However, this situation transcends the realm of a conventional oil deal. There are no Western CEOs embarking on grand press tours to promote their ventures, nor are there teams from the International Monetary Fund imposing stringent conditions into the contracts. Instead, this entire operation is being underwritten by Russia, a country currently facing severe international sanctions, and is jointly managed with a military-led government in Africa that has resolutely rejected colonial-era governance models. This endeavor is not merely about fueling economies. It is about establishing a new paradigm of influence. The oil extracted here will power not just vehicles, but will catalyze the emergence of a new geopolitical order, one in which traditional alliances may falter and be replaced by partnerships born from pragmatic necessity rather than historical ties. Despite the enthusiastic discussion surrounding this unprecedented discovery, it's crucial to note that not a single barrel of oil has yet reached the market. The leadership of Burkina Faso, under President Traoré, has made audacious declarations that this newfound wealth will not turn into yet another curse, a fate that has befallen many nations before, but instead will be used to create tangible benefits for the populace. They have promised that this oil wealth will fund the construction of hospitals, roads, and schools, ultimately enhancing the quality of life for many. Nonetheless, history has a long memory, and similar promises made in Venezuela, Angola, and Iraq serve as stark reminders. Riches are often squandered, leaving only chaos, corruption, or foreign exploitation in their wake. Thus, the pressing question shifts from merely the volume of oil present to a more urgent inquiry. Who will dictate the future of this resource? When the news of a staggering 50 billion barrel oil jackpot hit the headlines, the reaction from Western capitals was not one of skepticism, wondering whether the discovery was legitimate, but rather focused on identifying the power players in control. This realization arrived like a thunderclap. The orchestrator of this operation is not France, nor the United States, nor the IMF. It's Russia. The announcement did not come during a lavish press conference or a summit marked by elaborate discussions among global leaders. Instead, it became evident through a conspicuous absence of dialogue and a calculated shift in presence, where one power receded while another advanced. To grasp the full implications of this development, one must take a broader view, surveying the geopolitical landscape that has been evolving in West Africa for years. Burkina Faso, once an ally of France, is now navigating a new chapter marked by ambition and the pursuit of autonomy from previous influences. French military forces were deeply entrenched in Burkina Faso, functioning as both a stabilizing presence and a source of contention. French corporations dominated crucial sectors such as finance, construction, and telecommunications, creating an economic landscape heavily influenced by Paris. But he did not merely discard the outdated frameworks of governance. He embarked on an ambitious initiative to construct a new paradigm. Central to this transformation was the pursuit of fresh alliances, particularly with nations that would not impose rigid democratic standards or dictate terms during diplomatic negotiations. This led to the discreet arrival of Russian influence in the region. Moscow's approach was deliberate and understated. There were no grand announcements or ostentatious displays. Instead, Russia infiltrated the circles of power through subtle means. Private security consultants began appearing, confidential meetings were held away from public scrutiny, and unfamiliar figures started to emerge within the political landscape. The Kremlin understood the importance of discretion, and Traoré, seeking to reclaim control over his nation, found this method appealing. He was not interested in courting media attention. He sought to carve out an autonomous path for Burkina Faso, free from the burdens of oversight. Russia's engagement gradually unfolded through a series of assertive diplomatic and military maneuvers, confirming a strategic pivot away from Western dependency. This shift toward an alliance with Russia represented not only a rejection of the past, but also a bold recalibration of Burkina Faso's future on the global stage. First, Traoré decided to end the cooperation between Burkina Faso and the French military. He then took strong action against French non-governmental organizations, NGOs, and expelled journalists from France. When the French ambassador was accused of interfering in Burkina Faso's internal matters, Traoré didn't just reprimand him, he publicly told him to leave the country in a very loud manner. That moment made it clear to everyone that France was no longer in control and was being pushed aside. By the time the final French troops left, it was obvious. Burkina Faso was no longer a place where France held influence. Instead, Russia was stepping in to fill that gap. In 2023, Russia reopened its embassy in Ouagadougou for the first time in over 30 years. This wasn't just about reopening a consulate. It was a significant move to assert their presence. Following that, Russian military instructors began coming in to train Burkina Faso's armed forces. They provided equipment and shared strategies, and even began teaching Russian in some military training schools. Then came the revelation of significant oil reserves, estimated at 50 billion barrels. This was a game changer, transforming Burkina Faso from a struggling nation into a place full of potential. Now, decisions about this oil wouldn't be made in Paris, but in Ouagadougou, the capital, and increasingly in Moscow. However, with this newfound wealth comes important challenges. How will they manage it? Who will benefit? And how can they ensure it doesn't end up in the hands of only a few individuals? With oil discovered and alliances formed, they are starting to envision a brighter future. They're not just thinking about oil wells and refineries. They have bigger ideas. Imagine highways cutting through deserts, cities emerging from the sand, and infrastructure that links villages to factories, ports, and borders. They're not calling this oil find a quick win. They see it as the beginning of something much larger, a chance for Burkina Faso to grow and thrive on a new path. Interestingly, the vision fueling Burkina Faso's ambitious reforms does not stem from the traditional powers of France or even the historic influences of Russia. Rather, it originates from the dynamic landscapes of the East, specifically the iconic skyscrapers rising from the sands of Dubai. If you listen closely to the speeches emerging from Ouagadougou today, you'll detect a palpable tone of determination, an ambitious rhetoric that speaks to their transformative agenda. President Traoré and his government are mirroring a well-known success narrative, the evolution of Dubai, a city that evolved from a modest port town into a global economic titan, not merely due to an abundance of oil, but through astute and innovative utilization of its resources. Dubai's strategy was not to hoard its petroleum reserves. Instead, it reallocated them towards infrastructure development, transforming its economy with airports, shimmering skylines, and cutting-edge technology hubs. The city's leadership harnessed oil not just as an energy resource, but as a catalyst for ambitious progress. This strategic playbook is precisely what the government of Burkina Faso is now seeking to replicate. In Burkina Faso, oil is not viewed as an end goal. Rather, it serves as a launchpad for broader economic ambitions. Behind the scenes, Traoré's administration is diligently articulating a long-term roadmap that extends well beyond immediate projects. Under a groundbreaking agreement with Gazprom, Burkina Faso is not merely collecting royalties. It is actively engaging in the energy game. Current reports indicate that the state is securing substantial stakes across the entire downstream sector, comprising refineries, transportation infrastructure, and storage facilities. This approach represents a significant departure from the standard procedures witnessed across Africa, where foreign companies typically extract resources, export them, and leave the host nations with minimal benefits. The era of waiting for IMF support, appealing for foreign aid, or navigating bureaucratic hurdles for development loans with punishing interest rates is over. If Western partners choose not to engage, Burkina Faso is committed to forging ahead with anyone willing to collaborate, be it Russia, China, private enterprises, or through self-reliance. And crucially, oil is just the first step in a larger vision of transformation. In just 12 months, Burkina Faso has made significant changes. The country is not just sitting on oil. It is changing how all its resources like gold and grain are managed. Old contracts have been canceled and revised. Foreign mining companies are being brought back to negotiate. New national companies are starting up, not just to mine or drill, but also to manage, refine, and trade resources. The discovery of oil is important, but it supports something even bigger. A state-run development bank is being created to invest directly in local businesses. A tech fund aims to keep young innovators from leaving the country by helping them build new ideas at home. Agriculture is also improving, with the Lait Moulin Sahel initiative already exporting locally grown rice to neighboring countries. This shows that Burkina Faso is not just hoping for self-reliance, it is working towards it. President Traoré describes this as a new type of African governance. Instead of wealth trickling down slowly, it flows in circles among the people in different regions. Some critics feel this is too ambitious and too fast. They highlight threats like insurgency, political instability, and poor infrastructure. They question how a country facing these challenges can become an economic power in just 10 years. However, they miss a key change: the mindset. This government is not asking the world for patience. Instead, it is calling on its people to build and create for themselves. To avoid corruption, they are setting up safeguards. They are testing digital tracking systems to monitor oil revenue. They are also creating interactive dashboards for citizens to see in real time how revenue is used, which roads are built, which communities benefit, and how much oil money goes into the budget. If this plan succeeds, and it is a big if, Burkina Faso can do more than just drill oil. It can strengthen public institutions, boost the economy, and restore confidence in a population that has long been overlooked. Burkina Faso isn't trying to follow in the footsteps of other countries. Instead, it's striving to shape its own future according to its own vision. However, with ambitious plans come challenges and pushback. We're seeing it from foreign companies that are quietly unhappy with the proposed changes, from international donors expressing concerns about governance, and even from distant governments that might be trying to undermine those efforts. Despite all this, Traoré, the leader of Burkina Faso, remains determined. For him, this fight is about more than just economic projects like pipelines or refineries. It's about restoring dignity to his country. For many years, Burkina Faso has been used and ignored, its resources taken away while the people suffered with empty promises of help that never truly arrived. But Traoré is committed to turning this narrative around. He believes that the wealth found in the country's land should belong to its people,